First story. Entitled Stepmom Lost It. My son accepted Judaism instead of Christianity, and did an intervention with her church friends, claiming he will go to hell behind my back. So my son cut ties with his stepmom, and my ex-husband demands to reconcile, threatening to neglect him, now having a breakdown. My son didn't give a shit and cut him off too. Now his whole family is accusing me of poisoning my son. My ex and I have been divorced for 7 years. We have 3 children. Amy, 17. Tom, 16. And Ben, 14. Our divorce was amicable and we co-parent well for the most part. I am a non-observant Jew, and my ex is a non-practicing Catholic. We decided to teach our children to be decent people and allow them to decide what faith, if any, they wanted when they were old enough. My ex were married 2 years ago, and they have a 6-month-old daughter. She is a devout Christian, non-denominational. Since she came into their lives, she has actively tried to convert them. I wouldn't have an issue if she were just inviting them to church. But she is constantly telling them that if they do not accept Christ as their Savior, they will go to hell, as will I and my family. After this, my children refused to see their dad, unless it was outside of his home without her. Their dad finally put his foot down and put an end to it. Now, onto the problem. My parents went to Poland a few months ago to visit family, and took my children with them. While there, my dad took them to Auschwitz and Ben was very moved. When he came home, he started attending temple with my father, and has been working with his rabbi to prepare for his bar mitzvah. He is having a small party afterwards at my parents' house. When his stepmother heard this, she really ramped up the crazy. She waited until my ex was not home and invited a bunch of people from her church over, and they ambushed Ben. They tried to lay hands on him to save him from the fires. My daughter physically intervened, called an Uber and took her brother home. My ex stopped by a couple of hours later and apologized profusely for what had happened. My son accepted his apology, but stated that his stepmother was no longer welcome at his bar mitzvah or the party afterwards. My ex got very upset by this and stated that this was being disrespectful, and he could not go somewhere where his wife was not welcome. My son said, "Well, I guess you're not invited either then." He then locked himself in his room. My ex, his parents and his wife have all been texting and calling, berating me. When my parents found out what had happened, they stated that his wife was not welcome in their home. But they told my son that he should still allow his father to come. My ex is adamant that he will not come without his wife. And my son is adamant that his wife is not invited. I refuse to intervene on his wife's behalf. And my ex says I am an arsehole. Am I? Just a few things for clarification. I'm trying to respond to all comments. But there are getting to be too many. So thank you everyone for your input. I plan on showing this to my ex. No, she wasn't like this when he married her. She went to church. But it wasn't until they got married that she became more involved. I was actually surprised that she was with him, knowing that he was not religious but figured opposites attract. In the beginning she was great with our kids. They liked her and spent a lot of time with them. Her pushing my kids towards Christianity was little things like insisting they bow their heads for grace at mealtimes, buying them books by religious authors, not allowing what she deemed inappropriate movies, Harry Potter, anything with profanity, hanging up religious pictures and signs with Bible verses in the house, etc. Once she started with the "you're going to hell if you don't" nonsense, I got their dad involved and it ended. At least for a while. Their dad is very supportive of our sons embracing Judaism. He is paying for private Hebrew lessons, and has offered to send him to Israel the summer after high school, providing it is safe to go. My ex and I met our freshman year of college. We were together a few years before getting married and only got married because our first was on the way. And both of our sets of parents were very insistent that we do so. My parents especially were very big on the legal aspect of it for my protection. We separated after almost 20 years of being together because we had started to become unhappy together. And, despite counseling, could not resolve some of our differences. There was no infidelity or anything like that. We only got divorced when he met his current wife, so that they could marry. We had no formal custody agreement in place. My parents have me seeing a lawyer next week to put some parameters into place and protect everyone involved. He promised that the kids don't have to be around his wife until they are ready to be. I asked then, why is it a big deal that he doesn't want her at the ceremony and party? His response is that he wants the invitation extended. But he will make sure that she won't go. He says it's disrespectful and a snub to not invite her. I told him that that sounded like a big bunch of BS and that she was not going to be no matter what. Edited for punctuation and spelling. Update Sunday, my ex asked if I would be willing to come over and discuss what happened. He said he felt there were some misunderstandings that needed to be resolved. I went, along with my daughter and oldest son. They asked to go. Anyway, when I got there, there was another couple there who I was introduced to as her pastor and his wife. I was immediately on guard. Stepmother stated that all she and her church group had wanted to do was pray for my children. She stated that she felt that raising them with no religion had done them a great disservice, and that I didn't understand all of the consequences of doing this. She stated that since she had had her daughter, she realized how horrible it would be to be separated in heaven from the people she loved more than anything in the world. I said I did not believe that would happen, as I believed if there was any type of afterlife, one of the perks would be that you would be reunited with people that you loved. She then stated that it would have to be this way, as my children had not accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Then she started to cry. I gently suggested to her that she was still postpartum, and that it was possible that her hormones and emotions were heightened, and that she was not seeing things clearly. That was obviously the wrong thing to say because then she and my ex both became angry with me, and told me that I was trying to make her out to be a crazy person. Her pastor quoted a few Bible verses and attempted to expand on what she had said. The whole time my ex just sat there silently. I finally asked him what he thought about all of this, and he said that his wife meant well and that she was only concerned with our kids' souls. I asked him when he had become so religious, as during our 20 years together, he had not so much as stepped inside of a church outside of a few weddings we'd attended. He stated that their having their daughter had made him realize how important choosing a faith was. I told him that our son had chosen. It just happened to be Judaism instead of Christianity. I also said it was my understanding that it was the same God for both. The pastor then again chimed in, stating that Jesus was the true Messiah, and that Jews would be punished both in this life and in the afterlife for denying that. At that point, my daughter stood up and stated that this whole discussion was making her sick. My older son said that he was tired of dealing with all of his stepmother's bullshit, and he would never step foot into their home again. He said over the years he had ignored a lot as both myself and his dad had encouraged him to be tolerant of people's beliefs. But as nobody was being tolerant of his or his siblings' beliefs, he was done dealing with their hypocrisy. He told his dad that he had no desire to either talk to or see him or his wife for the foreseeable future. We then left. Today I met with the family lawyer that my parents had found for me. He said that tomorrow we are going to go to the courthouse for a temporary restraining order and to ask for an emergency custody order. He says we'll get both. He also had me go to the police department today and make a report with all 3 of my children about what happened last week. I am so sick that it has come to this. I never wanted my children to have to be put in the middle of battling families. I am aware, as so many of you pointed out, that I underreacted. To be honest, this is the first time in my life. I have never really dealt with anything like this. I grew up in an incredibly diverse community, where everyone was tolerant of everyone else. And when my ex and I were married, we returned and lived in that community. As we felt, it was a fantastic place to raise children. So that's that. I want to thank everyone for all of their support and for those who pointed out that I was being naive for being kind about it. I'm sorry. I could not respond to everyone personally, including all of the private messages I was sent. There were just so many. Never expected this to blow up so hard. Ada has no consensus bot. OP received the majority of NTAs. Relevant comments: OP's son might have been subjected to religious abuse or harassment. OP should make sure her son's boundaries are respected. OP, thank you. I feel partially at fault because in the past I told them to just ignore it when she made comments or to decline politely when she invited them to church. I should have been a lot more forceful but tried to be respectful of her faith. I never expected her to go this far. Commenter 1 NTA, and it's sad your ex is backing his nut job of a wife. Hope he understands this is going to ruin his chances of actually having decent relationships with his kids. He's always been a live and let live kind of guy. I think he's also afraid she will take their child and leave if he doesn't support her in this. None of my children are talking to him at the moment. I feel bad for him. But this is something that he has to fix himself. Commenter 2, you need to get your lawyer involved to legally put a stop to his psychotic stepmom. Right now, none of our children are talking to him. And they refuse to go back to his house. I told him that they are of the age that they can make their own decisions. And I will not force them to do anything they don't want. They have all blocked her and her family. I really don't want to go to court as I don't have the money, especially with the oldest going to college in the fall. But I support them 100% on staying away from her. Commenter 3, what is wrong with your ex-husband? I too am a devout Christian and have nothing but love for my Jewish brothers and sisters. It is up to a man to clarify with his current wife what is acceptable with her interactions with your and his children. He needs to stand up like a man. I agree completely. And I really don't understand it because when we were together, his parents were pressuring us to have all of our kids baptized. And he stood up to them. Explains a bit more about her daughter, who physically intervened in the meeting with the stepmom and her church friends. No, my daughter intervened before they touched him. She said she had a feeling something was going to happen because they came into the family room where all three were watching TV and got into a circle holding hands and were praying out loud about all three of them. She said they were all frozen, staring at these people in a kind of WTF way. But then when they let go of each other and started heading towards them, she grabbed her brother and pulled him out the front door. My ex has sworn that he will ensure that the kids are never left alone with her again. As of right now, none of them agreed to go anywhere with him either. But my parents are now insisting that I go speak with an attorney to get a formal custody agreement drawn up after this incident. I see now that I should have done this years ago. But our divorce was so amicable. And until she came into the picture, everything was fine with our co-parenting. We even took vacations together with the kids. The only thing I can think of is that now he's so afraid of her leaving him and taking their daughter that he's throwing our kids under the bus to appease her. Which is not okay. Update 3.5 months later, Ada for not allowing my kids to see their grandparents for Christmas break. Hello, everyone. I posted on here a couple of months ago after my ex's wife staged a religious intervention when my son decided he wanted to embrace Judaism and be bar mitzvahed. The post is still under my profile if anyone wants specifics. My ex and I share 3 children. Amy, 18. Tom, 16. And Ben, 15. The people responding to that first post helped me to see that I was underreacting. And I met with a lawyer for a custody order as we had just done our own thing. I now have full decision-making for our children's religious upbringing and full custody. X has visitation every other weekend. I have been incredibly flexible and let him take them pretty much whenever he or the kids want. On his weekend I stay with my parents. And he stays in the house. The only rule I made was that the stepmother is not around them at all. Ever. My kids are very close with their paternal grandparents. GPs know that the stepmother is not to be around them. But twice when I picked them up she was there. The excuse was that she had just popped in quickly to drop off the baby. I asked them to let me know when they were sitting. And we would plan a different day. But they said that it was a last-minute thing. Okay, fine. They want them to come for a 5-day visit over Christmas break, not 24 to 25, and I cannot trust that this woman will not come over. Ben still gets incredibly anxious with her. Yes, he is in therapy. My in-laws refuse to tell her that she cannot come over because they say they do not want to be put in the middle, and that it's making them choose between their grands. I reached out to my ex, who said that since she isn't coming over for long he's not stopping it. He also said that there is nothing in the order that says she can't be around. And as his wife and mom of their sibling, there's no reason that she should have to tiptoe around. He was incredibly dismissive. And I went nuclear on him. I told him that I had been letting him see them whenever, despite only having 2 weekends a month. That he was married to a sociopathic zealot. And that if she continued to come around, I would go back to court and ask for supervised visits and a restraining order against her. He hung up. Then I asked the kids what they wanted. come to find out, the woman has been coming around a lot. Amy said their grandparents asked them not to say anything to not upset me. I told my daughter that as an adult she can go, but that her brothers would not be. Ben's look of relief broke my heart. Amy said she felt weird when Step showed up. Tom said he's with Ben. Called Exmill told her that the children would not be coming back until they chose to. I said they were welcome to come over to see them. I said they were so wrong to ask the kids to keep secrets. They called my exe who berated me for punishing his parents. Stepmom sent me a text saying I was unfair. I think I'm right. But everyone else thinks I'm tough. Am I? Verdict. Not the arsehole. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA. Your children are old enough to set their own boundaries. If they don't want to go to GPs and or interact with their stepmom, they shouldn't be forced to. This is a critical teaching moment about boundaries and respect. Protect your children as best as you can, including legally if ex and stepmom insist on stomping all over the boundaries set. GPs are also boundary stompers and can't be trusted. OP, thank you. I appreciate your input. I get that my former in-laws love my kids as well as their new grandchild and don't want to be caught in the middle. But for the life of me after what happened, I don't understand how they can't accept that. I don't want my children around her. It's the only thing I've asked. And they're acting like I'm banning them completely, which I'm not. They can come visit them at our home at any time. We live less than 15 minutes from them. Commenter 2. NTA. They have proven that they can't be trusted to protect your minor children. And as their custodial parent, you're doing what you have to do to keep them safe. Period. This isn't a punishment. It's consequences, and people who are asking to spend time with children should absolutely know the difference. Quite frankly, anyone who asks a child to keep a secret from their parents, especially a secret that involves explicitly going against the boundaries set forth by the parent, is someone who shouldn't be spending time alone with that child. Their defense was that they did not ask them to keep it a secret, or lie only to not mention it. Sigh. I told them that they can see them at any time. We live less than 15 minutes away from them. So it's not like I'm cutting all access to them. I really don't think they understand how much her attempting to save them affected them. Commenter 3. Info. Are you 100% sure that the kids love their paternal grandparents and want to see them? Yes. But not at their house anymore. Although they still want a relationship with them, they have noticeably pulled away since this whole incident, as they do not feel supported by them. Ben had started making excuses and not going after the first time SM showed up, and his grandparents made excuses for her and downplayed his discomfort. But now my in-laws are digging in their heels, and saying my compromise of them coming over to see the kids whenever they would like is unreasonable. She even made the mistake of calling my mother to try and intervene. And my mother, who is one of the kindest, most forgiving people you will ever meet, told her that if it was up to her, and my dad, who has had beef with them since they last minute didn't show up to Ben's bar mitzvah with no explanation, they wouldn't be seeing the children at all, until they were able to admit that they were wrong and apologize to all 3 children. My older son's birthday is coming up, and my daughter called them yesterday to invite them to the family dinner we are having for him. They said they are too uncomfortable to do so since my ex won't come without his wife, but would be happy to have a second party at their house, which she and my son both refused. They just continue to keep hammering nails into that coffin. Second story. Estranged stepsister who bullied me until I moved out at 18, contacted me 5 years later wanting to reconcile, then complained to our dad, saying I'm still punishing her. My mom died when I was 6, and my dad remarried when I was 9. The woman he married had a daughter 1 year younger than me, so she was 8. At first I loved having a new mom. She wasn't the best and will never replace my real mom, but I appreciate her trying to be there for me, and I am pretty close with her and my dad. At first I loved having a sister and we got along great. I loved having a playmate during vacations and always having a play or two. The problems really started to amp up when I was 13 and she was 12. It seemed like no matter what I did, it went unpunished in her eyes, and she had to mock me constantly. Being a hot-headed 13-year-old usually meant I'd retaliate, and we would have those long screaming matches till either of our parents told us to knock it off, or they would send us to different parts of the house to cool off. I also started playing football in high school, and my problem was that I was constantly getting injured. In 8 years 11 to 18 I broke my arm, pinky and wrist. Got 2 concussions. Tore my ACL. Sprained my MCL. And dislocated my shoulder. On top of all that, I was kind of chubby. I don't want to say I was fat. I was about 180 to 210 from the ages of 14 to 18 at 6 to 2. She used to make fun of me for my injuries and my weight, which were very touchy subjects for me. Her favorite insult was, "You fat, crippled loser." Or maybe if you lost some weight you wouldn't get injured so often. Back then those insults really pissed me off. But I kept trying to be the older brother and just told her to shut up, fight back or storm off. She also loved to embarrass me when friends were over by bringing up dumb stuff. I did when I was like 9 or 10. My friends are great people. But we tease each other a lot, and would usually remember anything embarrassing we did and bring it up later. So whatever she said to them would always get back. I did talk with her about if she could just shut up when I have my friends over, and she basically told me to F off, and that it's her house too. At this point in my life, 16 years old, I am super pissed at how shtty she has treated me over the years. I know I caused some, and I usually fought back when she got snippy and bratty with me. But to me she started more fights than I did. I did try to talk to my dad and stepmom about the way I and she treat each other, and they basically said it's normal sibling rivalry. Her antics got a lot worse. And her words got more and more mean-filled and vile. Which meant I would retaliate with just as mean and vile-filled insults. I will not sit here and say I wasn't just as mean to her as she was to me. I used to bully her relentlessly for these hair buns she would wear from 13 to 14 if you want a picture. Just look up the buns Lee wore from Star Wars. I also told her plenty of times that I hate her, and don't consider her family. I have apologized so much for those too because I do feel bad. Even though she hasn't apologized. I know she feels bad too. I bet there were some other moments. But they didn't happen to me. So I probably forgot them. I moved out when I was 18 without ever sending her a text message goodbye, or even telling her I was moving out. The past 5 years of unpleasantness between us made me happy that I didn't have to see her. A year later she moves out. And I still resented her for how we treated each other. We go almost 2 years without speaking other than on holidays. And that's really only dry stuff. Nothing big. I am now 21. And she's 20. And I got a text the other night asking why we aren't close like we were when we were kids. I basically said I don't care to get along with you or get close because of how we treated each other as kids. She told me to grow up. And not even an hour later I get a call from my dad asking why I have so much hate for my sister since we have lived together. I told him I'll be cordial and won't cut her out of my life. But I don't need or want to be close with her. How do I go about telling her that I don't want us to be close yet until we both want to be close? But leaving the door open for her not to resent me. And we can still love each other? TLDR. My sister and I treated each other terribly growing up. And now I don't really care to be close with her. Edit. I would like to point out that I was just as mean to my stepsister. I don't have examples because it's been 5 years and didn't stick with me like hers did. But our fighting growing up did go both ways. Edit 2. Some people have said that I shouldn't cut her out of my life. And I agree with that. I love her and want to be there for her. But I don't like her enough to be close with her. Edit 3. I added more to the story of how I was shtty to her too. Relevant comments. Up. When told maybe his sister matured and has changed. Honestly, I do want a relationship at some point with her. But some insults are a bit too fresh and could still hurt. I also want to explore life without being bogged down with a friendship. I don't want with a person I wouldn't like. In due time I would like there to be a close bond between us. Just not yet. And don't get me wrong, I love her. And if she needed me I'd be there in a second. But I don't want to really have that. Let's go get drinks and be buddies type of relationship at this point. I hope she knows that if any dude tried to harass her, I'd be on him in a second. I remember I knocked the daylights out of a dude who slapped her arse when we were at the beach. If she ever needed to talk to me about advice, of course, I'd be there for her. I just don't think I want that super close relationship yet. Update. After our text convo that led to my dad calling me asking what's wrong between us, I texted her about a meetup at my place. This was the first time we actually met or hung out outside of a family gathering. Before she came over, that realization gave me a new look at our relationship. The whole sit-down went well. We actually got along. And there wasn't any name-calling or anything mean. We talked about how we treated each other. And this was the first time I've ever heard her apologize for how she treated me growing up. And I did the same. We talked about how the text convo went. And I came to the conclusion that I still had the old image of how she was when I last saw her at 17, and was using that to picture her now. She still kind of acts the same kind of moody but can hold it in so much better now. But it's a lot better. We talked it out and spent about half the day together just hanging out. And I will admit I enjoyed it. I don't think we will be super duper close. But it's a step in the right direction. And there isn't a wall of tension between us anymore. Thank you all for the advice and comments. It really came in handy and I appreciate it. TLDR. Me and my sister talked it out and it went pretty well. Final comments. Deleted. I'm really envious but extremely proud of ya. Up till now I still can't make things right between my big sis and me. But that's okay. Maybe we just need to mature and talk it out. Up. Give her a shot. Invite her to a coffee meetup, that's what we did. And it really helped. Make sure it's public so things can't escalate to an actual screaming match. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button and share it with your friends.